Nau ko te ngāwari, nau ko te marino, nau ko te hohonu, nau ko te wātea, nau ko te waitapu, nau ko te wainua. Ko Tangaroa, ko hine moana, whakanuatia, whakatapua e, haumi e, ui e, tāiki e. Ko te mihi tuatahi ki tō tātou kaihanga kui o nāna nei ngā mea katoa kia tai mai tōna manaakitanga me tōna rangatiratanga hei whakairi ake kei rungi a tātou. Ka tika me mihi atu ki ngā tīpuna rātau I takataka hi mai te matua te whenua, nō reire ngā matua tīpuna haere, haere, haere atu rā. Nō reira kia koutou, e te hunga e mātakitaki ana mai I tēnei rā, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa. He honore nui, he whiwhi nui, kia tai mai mātou, te whānaua manaaki te awa nui, ki te tuku kōrero e pāna ki tēnei kaupapa whakahira rawa atu, nō reira, kia koutou e mātakitaki mai ana, tēnā koutou, huri noa, kia ora kia tātou katoa. Ka huri au kia hokona Reon tana kāwhi te atanei. I'll now go to the language that helped me buy my coffee this morning. Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora tātou katoa. It's an absolute honour and an absolute privilege to be here today, to share our experience in Tauranga Moana of addressing a really important issue. Over the last couple of decades, we've seen the degradation of our moana. My marae is situated right on the harbour side, and throughout that time, we've seen, sadly, the degradation of a lot of our taonga species and our harbour and all. So what we've been doing is we've been on a journey for the last few years in regards to trying to find ways, solutions, how we can better be involved in managing our harbour for the future generations. So it's an absolute privilege for us to be here today to share the journey that we've been on. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora kia tātou katoa.
Kia ora Regan. Kia ora Reon. Ko Regan Fairlie tōku ingoa, no Ngāti Porou ahau. I think I'd just like to start off actually by just saying that we're really privileged to have Reon here with us today. He has been one of our kaitiaki that has helped us on this project, and I think it's really good that you'll be able to listen to it from his perspective about how these academic and science tools can help them as kaitiaki. And so the first slide I really want to open up about, and I want us to think about what kaitiakitanga is. And for me at least, the picture that's on the screen at the moment represents kaitiakitanga for me. This is actually in Tāwhiwhi where Reon is from, and his whānau are out there, they're walking out across the estuary, they've walked off the marae and they're about to get on the boat to go and gather pipi for their whānau. And it's not just about sustaining their people, but it's also about their mana and their manaakitanga and keeping the Māori alive in these estuaries, because they are very intimately connected to that environment, that if it becomes degraded, then the Māori becomes degraded, and then there's a loss of mana. And actually at the moment, Reon taught me about, they were very famous there for their cockles, and Reon will talk about this a bit more later, and they've become smaller and smaller over time. And this doesn't just mean that they can't eat that food, but then they can't give this food to their visitors that come to their marae. And so they were once famous for this, and now they have to get those from Pack and Save, the bigger cockles. And so I think this really, for me, just teaches us that kaitiakitanga is about looking after all of those things that sustain us as a people, that sustain our mana, that sustain our wairua, and we are able to look after more than just ourselves and look after everybody else around us through looking after our environment. And so that's kaitiakitanga for me, and I think that photo there is really what depicts that. And so as we move forward throughout this presentation, we just want to think about why we're doing that. And if we're looking at it from a council perspective, we need to think more about the values of what those estuaries can provide. And they're not just about the abundance of cockles, but it's about the size of them, what they taste like, what they look like, and whether they can sustain us as a people, whether it can sustain our mana and our wairua as well. But I might get Reon to share some more about that, because that photo was taken at his marae.
Kia ora, Regan. So the memory I have 30 years ago is heading out when we have functions at the marae, events at the marae, heading out as a whānau with my uncles, my aunties, and gathering kaimoana for all the visitors that come to our rohe, and providing them with the best kai that we have within our rohe. And we've done this for hundreds of years. And so with that comes a lot of cultural practices, the karakia, the whanaungatanga, the kotahitanga, and so much value that comes with just going out and getting the kaimoana for our manuhiri. Sadly, as Regan alluded to, we've seen the loss of our kaimoana, our tuangi, our cockles in particular, where we're no longer going out and gathering kaimoana for our manuhiri. And so what we're doing is we're also losing our culture. That's what's happening there, is we're losing our culture alongside with our tuangi, with our cockles. So we're not doing the karakia, we're not doing the teachings are not being passed on from one generation to the next. So sadly, we've seen a loss of a lot of our cultural practices alongside the loss of our humble tuangi. So, for many years, we've done this, and and what we aim to do is actually restore it so we can actually get our people out there practicing the culture of our people again. He oranga taiao, he oranga tangata. If the environment is healthy, then so is our people and so is our culture. That's our ultimate aim. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So part of this project was about how do we assist kaitiaki, how do we give them information that's helpful to them, so that when they're observing these problems, when they're observing this degradation, how can they make some change? How can they make action and really work towards having a healthier estuary? And so we went through a phase of reclaiming mātauranga and going back and listening to those narratives that were always passed down from generation to generation, and finding ways where we can assist with science. And I think really it goes back to building relationships with our people, going back, learning their stories, learning about what it means to them, and then we can help through academic science. And really reclaiming mātauranga was about that. It was going back and listening to those narratives and finding ways to connect our kaitiaki with the relevant information that they can use. And what we found along the way actually was that we could connect them to others, connect them to other kaitiaki and other rohe and other parts of the estuary where they were finding themselves getting burnt out, getting tired, because it's all voluntary for them. And we wanted to make sure that this program was able to connect them as well. And so we set off on a task with developing an online resource centre. And really we had to go back and we had to talk to our people. And so through these interactions, we started to develop some guiding principles, some paumatua, some core values. And some of those were going back and listening to whakapapa. And we were able to listen to how Māori, how tangata whenua, how kaitiaki connected to the environment. They are the environment, and the environment is them. And so we needed to make sure that we followed these principles as we developed this online resource. We had to go back and we had to talk to them, kanohi ki te kanohi. And these were all values that they held strong, that they held dear to themselves, and we needed to make sure that we followed that as we went through this process. We looked at whanaungatanga, again, connecting different kaitiaki in different parts of the country. For the most part, some of them were feeling isolated, and we needed to make sure that we could connect them to each other so that they could help each other. Kawa and tikanga, and I'll get Reon to go through these as well, because really, for me, you're listening to it from a researcher's point of view who listened and tried to make sense of how I could put this into a digital platform, but it's really nice that you can listen to Reon, because you're getting it right from the mouth of the kaitiaki. One thing I will say about the paumata that I was really happy about that this project found was that when we developed the guiding principles from the interviews, we found that they were very, very similar to what was in the Tauranga Moana iwi management plan. And I think really for us that was a good outcome, because it showed that we were listening to the people and we came out with those good outcomes. And that was to connect kaitiaki, enhance kaitiaki work, and empower kaitiaki to make action.
Ko te manu kai I te miro nona te ngahere, ko te manu kai I te mātauranga nona te ao. The bird that eats from the fruits of the forest, theirs is the forest. The bird that eats from the tree of knowledge, theirs is the world. We've been on a journey of reclaiming our mātauranga, and really it's about empowering our community, our people that have been here for many generations. And as I alluded to before, we've been really disconnected from our culture and our practices with the degradation of some of our taonga species, our treasured species within our harbour. So this provided an opportunity for us to move into the new world and use some of the new technologies and bring a new awareness for our people to get involved and being true kaitiaki once again. So this project that we've been on has enabled us to be able to connect our rangatahi, connect our Pākeke, and connect our kaumātua back to the moana in the new world that we live in. So for us, it's about empowering our people again to be able to be true kaitiaki. So we've held wānanga, we've held all sorts of opportunities where we can bring our people back to the marae and bring back the old stories, connecting our old people through to our young people on a common cause that we can come together and hopefully come up with solutions for reconnecting our people to the taiao. Very important for us. So yeah, very happy to share some of those experiences today.
So some of the learnings that we found as we went through was that we needed to find spaces where we could communicate science and communicate science to kaitiaki in a way that was meaningful for them. And so you'll see throughout this presentation that it's very different. It's not blank, it doesn't have bullet points, it's very visual, and it's very cyclic. So this page here really shows that connection of Māori to cycles, and this in the report is actually the contents page, and so it's actually based off the moon phases, and because those are, I suppose, bullet points for our people, the phases, the cycles, and they're not in lines, and you'll see this the more and more we go through this project, that this is the way we want to move in terms of our science communication with our kaitiaki. And so this is where we started. Well, we'll get back to that later, but we ended up here, kanohi ki te kanohi, talking to our people, finding out what they need, what they want. And if we look at the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, Tiki Bluegum, he took us out into part of the estuary where the pipi bed was degrading. He used to get pipi there when he was young, and by the time he showed us, which was about 3 years ago, the pipi were small, they were discoloured, and they were starting to degrade. We went in there a year ago to do some monitoring, and the pipi bed is gone. And so we can see how fast the estuaries are changing. On the bottom left-hand side, we're sitting on a boat in the middle of Matatau Reserve in Tauranga Moana, and this hapū, they have the ability to change the bylaws, to decrease catch, to help preserve the taonga species within that reserve. And they were very interested in data management and making sure that we kept that information that we were collecting safe. So you'll hear as we move into phase 2, that's a big part of that is the tikanga and kawa around keeping that information safe and using it appropriately. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see Reon in there and Kia Maya, and we were really fortunate enough to learn about their work with resource consents. And I think I might just get Reon to talk about that actually.
Kia ora, Regan. E ki ana te kōrero, mā tō raurau nāku te raurau ka ora ai te iwi. It is said that with your basket and my basket put into the common basket, the people will thrive. The people will thrive. The people will thrive. Relationships are so important, and so that's one thing I really want to stress to all the viewers today is really work hard on your relationships, and first and foremost get to know one another, get to understand one another and how we think. The perspective from the world of Māori and the perspective from the world of scientists. There is a common place that we can meet, and that common place is actually where we all want to restore and make our environment better. So work hard on those relationships, get to know one another, from there you can build trust, and once you have that trust, then you can start to build partnerships on projects that are actually meaningful and can have actually some what we call hua, or some fruition through into the future. So that's one thing I really want to stress today. So yeah, I've been involved with resource management for over 10 years, for my iwi and for my hapū and for my whānau. And so throughout that time, we've faced a lot of challenges. We've seen economics always been the trump card in terms of decisions made over the environment. So we've always sort of been in a sort of battle mode when it comes to sort of trying to protect our environment. So one of the things that we've learnt is so important is to engage early on before even the resource consent process starts. Go and talk to the people, go and meet the people, go and understand the people. Once you do that, you can start to work on the resource consent process together as one, with a true more understanding of one another's perspectives and where each other is coming from. So yeah, that's the real thing I want to stress today, is build those relationships. Kia kaha.
So this is when we start getting into the actual development of the online resource. And the first phase, the proposals that went in, we needed to make sure that we followed those stepwise processes and the literature reviews. And what we came up with initially was a search engine that really didn't connect our people to those resources. So we had the resources there in terms of the journal articles, PDFs, but the language, not so much in terms of translation, but the words that were being used in science and the words that are being used by our kaitiaki were so very different. And so when our kaitiaki wanted to search for something, there was no connection between what they were looking for and what the science was showing. And so really what we had to do was go right back, and we had to find that missing link. We had to find what was missing between our kaitiaki and between the science. And really what we found was our kaitiaki wanted a place where they could tell their stories. They could show where they were from. They can show how important that environment is to them. And by doing that, it made them engage. And when we started building those relationships, and when they started engaging, we were actually able to find those connections back to the resources that they were needing. And we talked about whakapapa earlier. And so one of the designs in the web application was using genealogical frameworks to connect kaitiaki to the science resources. And we can see that a little bit further on. We went back and we talked and we had wānanga with them, and we found out what was truly important to them. And then you can see in the fourth circle that the tell kaitiaki story. So we really worked hard. Actually, we found a young guy who works here at Niwa in Auckland, who was able to develop the tool for us. I mean, I'm a bit old, so I only know about flux capacitors and all these old time machine stories from Back to the Future. But this young guy was really able to show us how we could do this in a more modern way. I think he was only about 20. He probably learned how to code when he was about 15. And I really think that generation is going to teach us how to use that technology. So he gave us the ability to be able to tell those stories, to tell them visually, through video, through visuals, through photos. And we learned also about social media and how social media connects to the youth of today. And we'll see more about that as we go through further. And then we were able to connect kaitiaki through those linkages in whakapapa style frameworks.
So yeah, what Regan said there is very important when you're engaging with tangata whenua. We used to have scientists and all these people, researchers come to our marae, and they put up on the PowerPoint presentations and all these graphs and all these flash words, and you know, our people would just get discombobulated over it all. So, you know, what you need to do is actually get on their level, talk in layman's terms, and just keep it real. So build that relationship is what I want to stress again, and start to get to know the people before you get out there and start doing all that work. back at home, we used to have all these researchers we'd see out on our harbour, getting information. We didn't even know who they were. And so our people were very apprehensive about engaging with these people because they'd already been out there doing all the work. So yeah, once again, get out there and go and meet the tangata whenua before you go out there onto the moana and start doing that sort of work. Engage with them.
So this here is the opening splash page of the online web application. I really don't like having the actual application up because technical difficulties, it's bound to fail right when we're talking to you live. So this is just a screenshot really of what it looks like. And you can see it's very visual, it's very simple, and it's engaging. So the descriptions are engaging, and they were designed that way so that we were able to tell those stories of what our kaitiaki are going through out there in our estuaries. I'll just click through to the next one. So phase one was a pilot run with Tauranga Moana. And what we found was we were able to connect them. We were able to connect them from these stories through to the academic science tools that they require. The next phase, I think, really is about tidying this up and making sure that it's appropriate across the country because every iwi is different, every hapū is different, and it may not work for everybody, but that's where we need to move to into phase two as well. So what we did with the social media learnings was that we needed the visuals to stop their thumbs from scrolling. And once they've engaged in the description and in the visuals, then they come through to this part of the web application where they can view the videos. The videos are kept short. They have subtitles. So the subtitles are there so that when they're watching in class, when workers are watching it at work, their boss can't hear the speaker going, so they can actually read what's happening. And a lot of people actually are engaging without listening to the sound, so that was a new learning for us. You can see that the descriptions are really short. We try to give as much information succinctly and simply so that we didn't lose our audience. And then you can see that it goes down into the 4 layers down below, and you can maybe think of those as the children. You have the parents at the top and then the children underneath, and these are those genealogical links that we found through whakapapa frameworks. And this was the missing link from being able to tell our stories to now we can engage in the science and be able to access that information that can help us.
E hara taku toa he toa takitahi, engari he toa taki tini. Leadership doesn't come by the way of one, it comes by the way of many. Throughout this project, what we've seen is the empowerment of our kaitiaki. They are a lot more confident in terms of the mahi that we're doing out in our area, in our moana. And so what we've seen is also the transfer of this knowledge down to our rangatahi. So our leaders are now confident to be able to hold wānanga where we can share the knowledge, pass that knowledge on to the next generations. And we're constantly having wānanga at our marae in and around Tauranga Moana because we know that it's the next generation that need to carry on this mahi for sustainability and for longevity of this sort of kaupapa. So that's another silver lining that we've seen out of this kaupapa. So we're really proud of how far our kaitiaki have come in the short time that we've been involved in this project. But once again, this has enabled our people to be able to be a lot more proactive and get out of a negative way of thinking in terms of what are the causes of some of these things that are causing the degradation to our harbour and our taonga species, and to stop the blame game, stop pointing fingers. We're now moving into a more positive space where we realise we just need to work together for the common cause, for the common kaupapa, which is the moana itself. And I go back to the whakatauki that I used earlier with your basket and my basket, put into the same basket, the people will thrive, the moana will thrive, the whenua will thrive. So it's definitely bridged a lot of gaps in terms of an awareness and an understanding of one another. So that's another real positive that's come out of this. Kia ora.
So one of the big parts of sustainable seas is ecosystems-based management. And really what we want to be able to do is to be able to put our people in touch with the tools that they can actually go out and start using. And you can see on this slide that the tools we're connecting them to are monitoring tools. So that they can actually go out and they can count their pipi, they can see what's out there, and they're able to put it together scientifically that it can be used year after year. And we were really fortunate that we worked with the whānau at Whareroa Marae in Tauranga Moana, and one of the stories that came up in Wānanga was about their mud snails, the titiko, and that the numbers had dropped over the years, and they wanted to get out there and have a look. And so we thought, well, we were lucky enough that Kane Taiapa helped us to get one of their young men to come out and utilise this online resource, and we just wanted to trial to see how it worked. And what we found was that he was able to find somebody that had done monitoring on titiko in an estuary nearby, and he was able to connect with her and to be able to build a monitoring plan for his part of the estuary. We put together a collection of his work, some films of how he did it, his monitoring plan, and throughout the evaluations of the online resource, another whānau from another part of the estuary liked that project, and now they're in touch with Nathan to see how they can build a monitoring plan for them. And so I think we've been able to make those connections between kaitiaki, and we've been able to make the connections between the observations and the science tools that they require to make change.
Kia ora, just to add on to that one there, Regan brought up Whareroa Marae, one of my whānau marae of Ngāi Te Rangi, one of the iwi in Tauranga Moana. So where they are based is right smack bang, right in one of the most industry areas within Tauranga Moana, right on the port of Tauranga. So throughout the years, they've seen the growth of industry all around them, and they've suffered a lot of impacts. There was no relationship that existed between them from those times, but in the last few years, we've built relationships, we've built trust, and now we're starting to build partnerships. We have a forum that we've developed, established, and it's a forum that enables us to come together around the table and find ways where we can once again bridge the gap and get a better understanding of one another. So we have a lot of these industry companies come onto the marae. They learn about who the people are, where they come from, and who they are, and vice versa. And so, yeah, forging those relationships is something, once again, that I really want to stress to everyone out there watching is when you engage people in a meaningful way, you will get value. You will get what we call hua, or fruition. So these are some of the big bold steps that have been made within Tauranga Moana, and it's really having a positive impact upon everyone that's involved in that area.
Throughout the development of our project, our online web portal, we found that there was a need for access to ArcGIS maps. Kaitiaki were interested in pre-1840 habitat land coverage and both marine habitat. And so this was a bit of a side development where we thought we'd just give it a go and see if we could get it on there. And it was really something that they enjoyed and something that we want to develop further into phase 2. So there are plans also to streamline that a bit better and to be able to put day-to-day observations and log them on those maps. The other part too was when we talk about rangatiratanga and autonomy and giving that authority back to those who are seeing the changes and who need to make action on the ground, that we were decentralizing where all this information was being kept. And so another part of phase 2 will look at how hapū trusts, iwi trusts, marae trusts can take this hardware and software and be able to utilize it to upload their stories, and then how can we make a connection between other software users throughout the country. And I think it's going to be something that we really need to work on, is making a network of all of that information. But that will come out in phase 2. So currently it has the ability for trusts to upload content that they want. It doesn't quite have the ability to share what they want to share and keep private what they want to keep private. But that's something that we'll work on in phase 2.
Whatu ngaro te tangata toi tū te whenua, toi tū te moana, me ngā marae maha o Tauranga Moana. People will come and go, they will pass away, but the land, the sea will remain forever, as well as all our marae in Tauranga Moana. So it only makes sense for us to empower our marae, empower our people, because they're going to be there forever. And so to give them that that empowerment is very important for longevity, sustainability, ongoing forever and ever. It's really important that we work together to look to achieve this goal of working together as one for the betterment of our taiao. Once again, he oranga taiao, he oranga tangata. A healthy environment, a healthy people.
So we're coming down to the end here. So that was kind of what we got through in phase 1. This was the pilot version. Now we've got to move into phase 2, where we need to see how we can put that across the country. So again, it was just the pilot, and we think it was successful. Now we need to find those new avenues. But the pilot area was Tauranga Moana, and I really want to thank all of those whānau. I'd like to thank Reon and his whānau, and all of the kaitiaki that helped us through this part of the journey. Also, sustainable seas. You can see sustainable seas there, and Manaaki Te Awanui as well.
Nō reira, kia whakahoki a hau te mihi atu ki a koe tarangatira Regan. Nā tō awhina kua kitea mātou te hāpai te ake o tō mātou iwi, o tō mātou hapū, o tō mātou whānau. Nō reira, kia mihi atu au ki a koe mo tō manaakitanga me tō tautoko ki a mātou. I just want to really thank Regan for his efforts in terms of helping our whānau. Our whānau have really appreciated all the assistance and the help that he's brought to our people. It's really helped inspire our people to be more proactive out there and to be more involved, and gives us real meaning to the mahi that we do. So kia koe tarangatira, tēnei te mihi atu kia koe, tēnā koe, tēnā koe, tēnā
koe. So you've heard most of this as we've talked this afternoon. Wow, we're getting tired. Growth for the future. Where are we going? So we want to develop that tikanga and that kawa for sharing. We will need to make sure that we're using that mātauranga and that knowledge that we're reclaiming. We need to make sure that we keep it safe, that it is a taonga, and that what we share, it's appropriate to share that, and it's also appropriate that we can keep stuff private. So we will look to that in the future in phase 2. We want to improve those visual maps, and we want to investigate how we can put in day-to-day observations, so we can, I suppose, look at that spatial extent of the observations, and we want to investigate the temporal, how we temporally store the knowledge of observations as well. One thing that Reon spoke about in one of his interviews was that there was a business in Tauranga Moana, and as they were going through a resource consent, that company was, they were learning Māori, and it made the whole process of engagement easier. It made the process of building relationships easier. And so we thought that we might investigate into phase 2 the tools and frameworks, Māori tools and frameworks that academics, that scientists can utilize to help build relationships with iwi and hapū. Also, 5 years or 4 years, I think, in terms of this project, 4 years is a long time in terms of technology. So we need to make sure that this is relevant in 4 years' time. What we've developed now may be relevant now, but it may not be in 4 years' time. So we've got to continually investigate the technologies that are being used as we go along in this project.
And just to kinaki, that kōrero, ma te hoi ngātahi o te waka, tēnā ka tūtuki pai te kaupapa. By way of rowing our waka together, that is how we're going to achieve the great outcomes that we need to do to protect our taonga, to look after our environment going forward. As we know, we're in very dire times, so we need to come together as one for a solution for for our environment. So that's once again definitely something I want to stress to us out there. Get out there, work together, build relationships, build that trust. Kia kaha tātou.
And that brings us to an end of our presentation, so I'll bring Robin on.
So, kia ora, thank you both very much. We already do have our first question in, so what I'll do is I'll go back and I will read it to you. I don't think the mic will pick me up, so that if you could repeat the question, so it's on for everybody else to hear, and then obviously answer it. Thank you.
Okay. So what challenges are we expecting to roll this out nationally to iwi and hapū? And that's from Linda Faulkner. I think, what are we looking at? I think the biggest challenge is going to be that every iwi and every hapū is going to be different. So we need to just make sure that the platform that we provide is something that can be used by all. And I think we were quite lucky in the first phase that we didn't filter down, or we didn't focus our energy on one small spectrum of kaitiaki. And I think there was a really hard exercise, was how do we make a resource that can cover a wide spectrum of kaitiaki, right from kids in education who are wanting to go out and pick up plastic, right through to people like Reon that are working in resource consent. And so there's a huge spectrum in between. There's whānau that are doing stuff in front of their homes, like Nathan. There are hapū that are looking to manage their bylaws in Matatau reserves. There's iwi, there's iwi. It's a huge spectrum. And so I think that by not focusing our efforts in the first phase will help us into phase 2. Would you like to?
Yeah, I suppose, just because you've been to one marae, you can't assume that you've been to them all. So every iwi, every hapū, and even whānau will have their differences, but there are commonalities that we can identify throughout the project that we've been doing that I think will be useful going forward. So we're looking to, hopefully in the next phase, look a bit more deeper into that. But once again, I go back to just building that relationship and getting to know one another. That's probably the key point to start at, is build that relationship, build that trust, then you can start to move forward together.
All right, so there's no more questions, so we'll wrap up. And
Hoi anō no mātou nei te whiwhi kia tai mai. Oh, we do have one more question, whānau. Kia ora.
How can non-Māori scientists contribute? Okay, so this is something that we really want to move forward with into phase 2, is about how do we connect to academic scientists that really want to be a part of it. We've actually been quite lucky that we work with Phil Ross from Waikato University, who now has a job of teaching mātauranga in Waikato. And what we really, really like about Phil is that he is non-Māori, he is a scientist, and he really wants to help. And so we're actually going to work a lot with him to develop those tools that have worked for him, and hopefully they'll work for others. And one thing that he learned really early on that he talks about is turn up with a cup of tea and a lamington and just sit down and have a conversation. Don't expect to have answers. Just sit down and have a talk and just start building a relationship. It might take longer, but building the relationship is the most important part. We're still developing at the moment the proposal, so there are others that we are wanting on board. We haven't Yeah, it's under development, and we are bringing others on, but we're still developing that at the moment.
Well, ka pai tātou. Once again, I'd just like to acknowledge everyone that tuned in today to listen to our kōrero. We have been sort of really inspired by this whole project right on the ground with our people. It's enabled us to bring our people on board and get them really involved with being true kaitiaki. So thank you very much for listening to us today, and we look forward to the future with this project going forward. So I'd just like to mihi to everyone today. Nō reira, ka nui te miha tu ki a koutou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Kia ora hui hui mai tātou katoa. E hikatu ake ki rungara, whitiki taua hei tamatu. Kumea ki te uru, uea ki te tonga, heke nuku, heke rangi, I arara. Ka ngarue, toia, ki te haumarangai, kia whakarongo e. Taku kiri te kini o te rehutai, o ngā ngaru whati e haruru mai, ne iwi wā hora ia o mata kia mere tu. Ahi e, hei taki I te ara, kia Tangaroa, he atu aha, I te tini, I te pō, e koko, ia e ara e. Mauri ora.
Kia ora.